Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah,
Today, we've got a really interesting one lined up for you guys.
I think so too.
We're going to be looking at Gandhi, Emerson, Thoreau, and Elizabeth Ashun.
Wow, what a lineup.
I know, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of a wild mix, but we're going to see if we can find any common ground between all of their works.
Okay.
So we're going to be pulling from Ashun's books, America, the Land of More Than Enough, and Got Wisdom. To ask or not to ask, that is the answer.
Okay.
And we're also going to be looking at Thoreau's Life Without Principle, along with an analysis of Gandhi's message in the Gita.
Okay, so not biographical sketches.
No, not really biographies.
It's more like the ideas.
Exactly, more the ideas.
Okay.
Like, what are the core ideas and philosophies that we can pull from each of these thinkers, and how do those connect?
Even if they express them in very different ways.
Exactly, yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so kind of just jumping right into it.
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed reading through a lot of this material is just how much emphasis Emerson and Thoreau place on self-reliance. Like, especially in Emerson's self-reliance and Thoreau's Life Without Principle, it's like they're both kind of pushing back against conformity.
Yeah, they're both kind of saying like, hey, trust yourself.
Yeah,
Like, live by your values. Listen to that little voice inside of you.
yeah,
Don't just blindly follow the crowd.
exactly. And, I was thinking about that, and Elizabeth Ashun's story really resonated with me.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, in America, the Land of More Than Enough, she talks about leaving a really comfortable life in Europe to come to America and start over.
Yeah, that's a pretty bold move.
Totally. And it really shows that she wasn't just talking about self-reliance.
Right.
She was actually living it.
She was walking the walk?
Exactly. Like leaving everything, and diving headfirst into something new.
Yeah,
It takes guts.
it really does.
And to leave behind what she calls the just enough of Europe for what she saw as the more than enough in America.
Oh, yeah.
That shows a deep trust in herself and her values.
Absolutely. And a commitment to living by those principles.
Exactly. Even if it meant like going against the grain a little bit.
Totally bucking the trend.
Yeah.
So you have her coming to America,
Mhm.
and then you have Thoreau going to Walden Pond.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because they both kind of left their comfort zones,
Yeah.
but for very different reasons.
Yeah. Thoreau is seeking simplicity and a deeper connection with nature.
Yeah, like a self-imposed kind of renunciation.
Exactly. And Ashun was looking for opportunity and a chance to build something new.
It makes you wonder how faith played into all of this, though.
Yeah.
I mean, Ashton's very open about her faith in her writing,
Uh-huh.
and it seems like it was a big factor in her decision to come to America.
Yeah, definitely. You can see that spiritual undercurrent in her work.
Yeah. And it makes me think about all of these thinkers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Emerson talks about this thing called divine providence.
Yes, divine providence.
Have you ever heard that term before?
Yeah, I have actually.
What does that even mean?
Well, it's this idea that there's like a higher intelligence at work, guiding and shaping our lives even if we're not always aware of it.
Okay, I guess you could almost connect that with Ashton's belief in God's guidance.
Yes, definitely a similar idea, but maybe a little less specific about a certain deity.
Yeah.
And then you have Thoreau, who found that kind of divine presence in nature itself.
Oh, yeah.
Remember his deep reverence for the natural world?
Yeah.
That was like a manifestation of a higher power for him, a source of wisdom and inspiration.
It's like they all acknowledge that there's something beyond just the material world.
Yeah, some kind of guiding principle.
Yeah, or source of wisdom, even if they call it by different names.
Exactly. And it's not just theoretical for them.
Yeah.
Like in her book, Got Wisdom, Ashun talks about this time she was facing a really tough decision professionally,
Ah.
and she prayed for guidance, and things actually worked out in her favor.
Wow, so she really puts that into practice.
Yes, definitely.
That's so interesting.
And you know what? I think that's what's at the heart of her Got Wisdom
Yeah.
concept.
Okay. When?
It's not just about having all the answers yourself.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we don't have it all figured out and being open to guidance.
Guidance from.
Well, from something beyond ourselves.
Okay.
Whether it's through prayer or intuition or just paying attention to the world around us.
Yeah, I think that's something that we can all relate to.
I think so too.
It's like surrendering to something bigger than yourself.
Yeah,
Letting go of the need to control everything.
absolutely.
And trusting that there's a greater intelligence at work.
I love that. And that can be really hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, especially in a world that values self-sufficiency and independence so much.
Exactly. But But you know what that brings us to?
What's that?
Another fascinating point of convergence between all of these thinkers.
Okay.
The idea of service.
Service.
Yeah, and maybe this sounds like a contradiction.
Okay.
Renunciation.
Service and renunciation.
Yes.
Okay. I'm intrigued. How does that work?
Let's start with Gandhi. In the Gita analysis we were talking about earlier, he talks about this concept called renunciation of fruit.
Renunciation of fruit.
Yeah, it's like this idea of acting selflessly,
Okay.
but without being attached to the outcome.
Oh, so like doing what's right without expecting anything in return.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to think about this alongside Ashun's work with her nonprofit Agape Samaritan International.
Oh, right, where she's all about giving back to the community.
Yeah, and helping those in need.
Without expecting anything in return.
Exactly. So her actions are like a form of renunciation of fruit.
Even if she doesn't use that exact phrase.
Exactly. And then if we think about Thoreau,
Yeah.
remember how skeptical he was of material pursuits
Yeah.
and how he advocated for simple living?
Right. It's like detaching from those desires for wealth and status so you can focus on something bigger.
Exactly.
Wow. It's like they're all saying that true fulfillment doesn't come from material possessions,
Right.
but from something much deeper.
Yes, something more meaningful.
It's like shifting your focus from what can I get to what can I give.
I love that.
That's a pretty radical idea.
It is radical, isn't it? Especially in today's world.
Totally. But I think it's a message that really resonates with a lot of people.
Deeply.
Yeah.
Deeply.
It's like something we all yearn for, even if we don't always know how to articulate it.
Absolutely.
It's so interesting to see how these thinkers from such different backgrounds and time periods arrived at such a similar understanding
Yes.
of what truly matters.
It's amazing.
It's really amazing. And, their ideas go beyond just individual fulfillment.
Oh, yeah. How so?
They also have this really strong social dimension.
You're right.
Like they weren't just concerned with their own personal growth.
Right.
They were also really engaged with the world around them.
Absolutely. And committed to making it a better place.
Yeah, like Gandhi's fight for social justice was a direct extension of his spiritual beliefs.
Yes. And Thoreau was fiercely critical of unjust systems.
Oh, yeah. Remember when he refused to pay taxes to protest the Mexican-American War?
Yes, because he saw it as supporting slavery.
Right.
And its expansion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like they understood that personal transformation and social transformation go hand in hand.
Yeah. You can't have one without the other.
It's not just about grand gestures either.
Right.
It's also about these small acts of courage.
Yeah, like a willingness to challenge the status quo in our own life.
Uh-huh.
To stand up for what we believe in, even when it's hard.
Yeah, it's like recognizing that we're all interconnected,
Absolutely.
that our actions have this ripple effect,
Yes.
and that even our smallest choices can contribute to a more just and compassionate world.
I love that, and that's so empowering.
It is.
It gives us this sense of agency, like we can actually make a difference.
Exactly, and that's a message that I think we all need to hear,
Especially today.
especially today.
With all of the negativity and division.
Yeah, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by all of that, but I think these thinkers remind us that we're not powerless.
We have the power to choose.
Yeah.
To act.
To create change.
Exactly. And it starts with cultivating that same spirit of self-reliance,
Right.
principled living.
And service to others.
Yes, just like we see in the lives of Gandhi
Emerson?
and Ashun.
Yes, but before we go any further,
Okay.
I think we need to unpack some of these other key concepts they explore.
Like what?
Well, Thoreau's critique of materialism
Oh, yeah.
and Ashun's observations about America as the land of more than enough.
Okay, that's a great transition.
Thoreau was really ahead of his time
Yeah.
in his critique of consumerism and this pursuit of wealth.
Uh-huh.
He really saw it as a trap,
Yeah.
like a distraction from what really matters in life.
And his words are even more relevant today.
Absolutely.
I mean, we are bombarded with messages telling us we need more.
More.
All the time.
Constantly.
It's a constant assault on our senses.
So true, and it's so easy to get caught up in that.
Totally. Like always wanting and acquiring and striving for that next thing. Yes, always that next thing.
But you know what's interesting is how Thoreau's ideas connect with Ashun's observations about America.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she describes Europe as the land of just enough.
Okay.
So people had what they needed,
No.
but not a lot more.
Okay.
But she says America is the land of more than enough.
Okay.
But she noticed something kind of curious.
So is that?
Even though Americans had more abundance,
Mm-hmm.
they also seemed more generous.
More willing to share.
Yeah, it's like a paradox.
It is a paradox.
Yeah, you would think that more wealth would equal more selfishness. But Ashun's experience seems to suggest otherwise.
That's a really fascinating observation.
It is.
And it really challenges our assumptions about wealth and generosity.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if having more than enough actually frees people up to be more giving.
Yeah, like when you're not constantly worried about scarcity.
Yeah.
You're more open to sharing what you have.
Right, like that saying, the more you give, the more you receive. But where does Gandhi fit into all of this?
That's a great question.
Like, he lived a life of such radical simplicity.
Yeah, almost the opposite of America's more than enough.
Right.
But his emphasis on simple living and service to humanity
Yeah.
aligns so beautifully with this idea of detaching from material wealth.
Right, like they all recognized that true fulfillment doesn't come from accumulating possessions.
Yes.
It comes from something much deeper.
much more meaningful.
And maybe, as Ashun observed,
Yeah.
that detachment actually allows us to be more generous
Yeah.
and more connected to something larger than ourselves.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that we're all part of something bigger,
Yeah.
something more interconnected than we often realize.
That's a theme I think we should explore further
I agree.
as we delve into this idea of finding a higher purpose and living a life of meaning.
Let's do it. But first,
Okay.
I think it's important to acknowledge that embracing these ideas can be pretty challenging.
Yeah, especially in a world that often pulls us in the opposite direction.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it can feel really daunting sometimes.
Totally, especially when
Especially when,
our society glorifies material success and individual achievement so much.
yeah, it makes it hard to prioritize things like simplicity and service
Yeah,
and a deeper purpose.
it's almost like we're swimming upstream.
Yeah, it's definitely an uphill battle sometimes.
But maybe that's part of the challenge and the reward.
Yeah, I like that.
Like Ashton's story,
Yeah.
leaving everything she knew behind.
To start over.
It wasn't easy,
Yeah.
but it sounds like it led her to a life that felt more aligned with her values.
Absolutely. And she really relied on her faith to guide her through those uncertain times.
Which brings us back to that idea of seeking wisdom,
Yeah.
right? It's not just about having all the answers.
No, it's about being open to guidance.
Guidance from where, though?
Well, it could be from anywhere, really.
Okay.
Prayer, intuition, even just paying attention to the signs and synchronicities that life throws our way.
I like that.
It's about recognizing that we don't have it all figured out
Yeah.
and being open to something beyond ourselves.
It's interesting how all of these thinkers, despite their different approaches to faith and spirituality, all seem to recognize the importance of connecting with something larger than themselves.
Yeah.
Like Emerson's divine providence,
Yeah.
Thoreau's reverence for nature, Gandhi's devotion to truth and nonviolence, and then Ashun's reliance on prayer.
Yeah, it's like they all tapped into this source of wisdom and strength.
That transcends our individual limitations.
Exactly. And it's like that connection, that
Yeah.
sense of belonging to something bigger fueled their commitment to a life of purpose and service.
That reminds me of something Thoreau wrote in Life Without Principle.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
He said, "If one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours."
Wow, that's powerful.
I know, right?
It's like he's saying that when you align yourself with your deepest purpose, when you dare to live the life you were meant to live, the universe conspires to support you.
In ways you could never have imagined.
Exactly. And it's not just about like external success
Right.
or money or fame.
It's about living a life that feels meaningful,
Yeah.
that aligns with your values.
And contributes to something larger than yourself.
I like that. And it's interesting how all of these thinkers,
Yeah.
in their own unique ways, kind of challenged the status quo.
Yes,
Right.
totally.
They weren't afraid to go against the grain, to speak truth to power,
Yeah.
to live by a different set of rules.
It's like they understood that true freedom isn't about conforming to societal expectations.
Yeah.
It's about living according to your own internal compass.
Even if that means standing alone sometimes.
Exactly, and that takes a lot of courage.
It really does, to step outside that comfort zone of conformity and embrace a path that's less traveled.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
But I think their examples show us that it's possible. And more importantly, that it's necessary.
We need more people like that.
Yes.
People who are willing to question, to challenge, to live by their convictions.
It's like they're all saying, don't just accept the world as it is.
Yeah.
Dare to imagine a better world.
A more just and compassionate world.
And then have the courage to play your part in creating it.
Their ideas are revolutionary.
Totally. It's not just about personal transformation.
Yeah.
It's about social transformation.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected,
Yes,
that our individual journeys are all intertwined with this collective journey of humanity.
absolutely.
But it's not always easy to see those connections.
No.
It's easy to get lost in all the noise and chaos of the world.
Yeah, especially with all the negativity and division we see today.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed.
It really is. But that's why it's so important to remember their message.
What message is that?
That even in the darkest of times, there's always hope.
Yeah.
There's always the possibility of transformation.
Both individually
And collectively.
and it all starts with a simple shift in perspective. What kind of shift?
It's about moving from a mindset of fear and scarcity to a mindset of love and abundance.
All right.
It's about recognizing that we're not separate, isolated individuals competing for limited resources,
Right.
but rather interconnected beings sharing this journey together.
So it's about focusing on what unites us rather than what divides us.
Exactly.
And remembering that we all have something unique and valuable to offer.
Absolutely. And when we tap into that sense of interconnectedness, when we embrace our shared humanity, we unlock this incredible wellspring of creativity, compassion, and courage.
That can transform our lives and the world around us.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
Exactly.
But sometimes it's hard to know where to start.
Yeah.
I mean, their lives were so extraordinary.
Right. Like Gandhi led a movement that freed India.
Emerson and Thoreau were intellectual giants.
Yeah, they shaped American thought.
And Ashun built this incredible business and dedicated her life to helping others.
So how do we as ordinary people live up to those examples?
Yeah, seems impossible.
Well, I think it's important to remember that their journeys weren't without challenges and setbacks.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't perfect beings who just effortlessly achieved greatness.
Okay.
They were ordinary people who, through their choices and actions, made an extraordinary impact on the world.
So it's not about achieving some grand, unattainable goal.
No.
It's about living each day with intention,
Yeah.
purpose,
And a commitment to making a positive difference.
no matter how small.
Exactly.
But it's not about trying to be like them, is it?
No, not at all.
It's about finding our own unique way.
To express those values in our own lives.
You're right. It's about taking those core principles and finding ways to weave them into the fabric of our everyday lives.
Absolutely.
So what does that look like?
What will it look like?
Like, how can we actually integrate these ideas into our busy modern lives?
Well, I think it starts with a willingness to slow down.
Okay.
To disconnect from the noise and distractions of the world and reconnect with ourselves.
With nature.
With something larger than ourselves.
Create space for reflection, for contemplation.
Yeah, to ask those big questions about what really matters.
How do we want to live our lives?
Exactly. And then it's about taking action.
What kind of action?
Aligning our choices, our actions, our relationships.
With those values that we've identified.
Yes, living with intention, purpose, and a deep sense of connection.
Well, it's not a one-time thing, right?
No, it's an ongoing journey.
Of growth and evolution.
A lifelong process of learning, unlearning, and relearning.
Embracing the messiness of life.
Yes, the challenges, the setbacks.
And using them as opportunities for growth.
Exactly, and remembering that we're not alone in this journey.
Yeah.
We have the wisdom of these thinkers and countless others to guide us.
And the support of our communities.
And the interconnectedness of the human spirit to sustain us.
Yeah, it's like we're all on this big journey together.
This big, messy, beautiful journey.
Yes, stumbling and learning and growing along the way. And I think having these guiding lights.
These thinkers who have walked the path before us.
Yeah, it can be so helpful and so inspiring.
They remind us that it's okay to not have all the answers.
Yeah.
To stumble, to fall, to question, to doubt.
It's all part of the process.
Exactly.
It's about embracing the imperfection.
Yeah, the messiness, the not knowing.
And trusting that we'll find our way.
One step at a time.
But it's not just about finding our own way, is it?
No, you're right.
It's also about helping others find their way, too.
That's a beautiful point. Remember that idea of service we talked about and renunciation of fruit.
Yeah, giving back, contributing to something larger than ourselves.
Without expecting anything in return.
Like Ashun's work with Agape Samaritan International.
Oh, yeah.
She could be living a life of leisure, enjoying her more than enough.
But she chooses to dedicate her time and resources to helping those in need. And it's not just about donating money or volunteering time.
Right.
It can be as simple as offering a kind word, or a listening ear.
Yeah, or a helping hand to someone who's struggling.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that interconnectedness and acting with compassion and generosity.
It's those small, everyday acts of kindness
that ripple outwards.
and create a more loving and compassionate world.
And recognizing that we all have something to offer.
Yeah, no matter how small it may seem.
Absolutely. Everyone has unique gifts and talents.
That they can share with the world.
Yeah, find those gifts, nurture them, and use them to make a difference.
It doesn't have to be this grand, world-changing gesture.
No, not at all.
It can be as simple as sharing your art or your music.
Your skills, your knowledge.
Yeah, just making the world a little bit brighter, a little bit kinder, a little bit more beautiful.
One step at a time.
And remembering that even in the darkest of times,
Yeah.
there's always light to be found.
Within ourselves and in the world around us.
And that's what makes the message of these thinkers so powerful.
Yeah, they remind us that even in the face of adversity,
Even when things seem hopeless,
we have the power to choose love, to choose compassion, to choose hope.
they show us that it's possible to live a life of meaning and purpose.
A life that's aligned with our values.
That makes a difference in the world.
And they inspire us to believe that we can do the same.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to invite you to reflect on what resonated with you the most.
Yeah, what insights did you gain? What questions were sparked?
How can you integrate these ideas into your own life?
How can you cultivate that spirit of self-reliance, principled living, and service to others?
Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
That's right.
Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible exploration of Gandhi, Emerson, Thoreau, and Ashun.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep seeking wisdom, keep living with intention, and keep shining your light brightly in the world.
And remember, you've got wisdom. Trust it.